I got cocktails in the community center at Fort Roos. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is August the 16th. It is 1:20 p.m. And I'm going to hereby call this meeting to order. It is a meeting of the Council of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. I would like to confirm that all members save one are present either in person or on Zoom. And then I would like to advise that Councillor Zavitz is absent and is not expected to come back this afternoon. So we will proceed in his absence. I also want to confirm that the CAO, the clerk, and other members of our senior management team are present. Again, some in the room, some online. And I would ask that you join me in acknowledging that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Today's meeting is being live streamed, and it's also being recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and its YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and being posted online. We did seek public input on the agenda via our website through the email address TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. We did receive, I believe, just one through that route. Is that right? Yeah, we just received one, and it was inbound from Ryan Allen, re ZBA 15/23 bylaw 2023-047, 2871503 Ontario Inc., part of Island Sky Plan, or Part 2, Plan 35R 19161, Medora, roll number 6-27-028. Other than that, there was no correspondence received through that portal. There is no supplementary agenda to acknowledge. And I'm now going to ask all members present in the room and via Zoom whether anyone has anything of a pecuniary interest that requires disclosure. Okay, seeing none, I am going to make my own disclosure. When we get to the point where we're ratifying minutes from last month's council meeting and also, I believe, last month's General and Finance Committee meeting, there are several matters on council, I think 4 or 5 that I had to recuse for a conflict. And there was one, I believe, on GNF. So when it comes time to ratify those matters, I will yield the chair to the deputy mayor, and I will stand over there out of eyeshot and out of vision. Okay. All right. We're going to just move on to the, make sure I haven't missed anything. I haven't missed anything. In fact, it is time. Is it time? It's time to deal with the consent agenda. And I am going to yield and let Councillor Mazan, Deputy Mayor Mazan, take as the chair in my absence and walk you through that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So we have a few small action items to take care of first. I would like to pull action item number 2 from the July 12th, 2023 GFC minutes. So we'll pull that. And that's it. And now I'm reading this. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the August 16th, 2023 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. 1. July 11th, 2023 Special General Finance Committee minutes. 2. July 12th, 2023 General Finance Committee minutes and action items 1 and 3 through 9. 3. July 12th, 2023 council minutes. And 4, July 13th, 2023 Planning Committee minutes and action items 1 through 8. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. And now do I ask to talk to this item or I sit and then thank you.
Oops. Thank you very much. And for the record, I didn't eat any of the cookies that are in. Okay, we're going to deal with action item number 2, which was pulled out. This relates to road allowance, Devons et al. I'm going to read a resolution. Oh, sorry, we're going to have someone speak to it. You pulled it. That's correct.
That's correct. So I have pulled it as I believe some new information has become available. And I think it's appropriate to have our clerk talk to this at this point.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you through the mayor. So we have received additional comments after this application was presented and recommended for approval at committee, expressing concern with a number of matters. In review of these comments, we did consult with our legal counsel, and based on conversation with our legal counsel, it is recommended at this time that this matter be sent back to staff for further review, consideration, and consultation with all parties involved.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions before I read the resolution on that matter? Councillor Bosenworth?
I'm sorry, but could we just be reminded exactly what case that was? There's some detail that would trigger.
This one's just off of Old Peninsula Road. It was a small portion right off of the road.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm going to read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that action item 2 from the July 12, 2023 General Finance Committee meeting, bracket original road allowance application ORA/03/23 Devons et al. Be referred back to staff for further review. Any questions, any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay, where am I here? All right, we're moving on to hall board.
Yep.
Next issue is going to be on the hall board appointments. We have, as you no doubt seen, had some more applications and some more proposed nominees for the hall boards. I'm going to read a resolution. If anyone has any issue with the names, I believe we're going to, are they the ones that we're going to close? If we have to discuss any of them? I'm going to change that. Moved by Councillor Parry. Seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that citizen members be appointed to community center hall boards as detailed in confidential memo LS-2023-27 and that confidential memo LS-2023-27 hereby be made public. We've all had a chance to look at the names and the nominations. Does anybody have any question or reason to remove this from open forum? Then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right. Next up is a report from Director Becking regarding the removal and installation of guide rail systems.
Thank you, Your Worship. The township's annual needs for guide rail have been incorporated into a joint tender with the District of Muskoka. Tenders have been called, and the staff recommendation is that we be allowed to participate in the joint award that will be awarded to Boral Fence and Guide Rail Contractors Limited.
Thank you, sir. Anyone with any questions for Director Becking? All right, I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the township participate in the District of Muskoka contract for removal and installation of cable guide rail and steel beam guide rail systems in the amount of $224,652.20, taxes excluded, to be funded and offset within the 2023 operating and capital budget. And that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute all necessary documents and proceed with participation in this contract. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Next up is Mr. Moore. You're going to speak on the design and installation of playground equipment.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Today's report is to award the contract of design and installation of playground equipment at Jasper Park. This project was identified in the 2023 capital budget. Staff have evaluated the proposals that came in and are recommending award to New World Park Solutions. I will note the one item that has changed in the project as identified in the report is that regarding the funding aspect of it. Originally, the funding was tied into this year and the balance coming through in the 2024 budget. This year, the funding would help kick off the project, get it started. And the funding proposed for 2024 was more of a placeholder at that time until we got further details of the actual pricing component. To ensure a spring installation and the ability for us to procure the equipment through the manufacturer, we are recommending a change that the remaining funds come through the Parkland Reserve this year versus the 2024 budget, and that's just more of a timing factor. With that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Does anyone have any questions on the report? Councillor Kent.
Was there any community involvement in the choice of the design? Because I just have this memory of what happened at Hannah Park right here.
Just a question, please.
Yeah.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. The simple answer is no. There's been no community input on the concept designs for the playground to date. Although it is a very good point, and I think going through this process for the first time for myself, I've certainly identified that. I do know, also reviewing the Parks and Rec Master Plan, it has identified developing design standards for parks, trails, maintenance, ongoing maintenance of them, etc. Through that process, we'd certainly love to include and identify when public input is sought as such. But currently, there's definitely no guidelines in that regard. So if it is a desire of council, we certainly can entertain public input on the concepts. I think we're at a point in the project where it's certainly better to do that now that we actually have some designs in place to get feedback on versus early on with kind of just a blank slate. So I think we're kind of up to council's direction on that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kent, you have a follow-up?
$1,000 in the budget over 2 years, and this is going to be 136,000. So that's a big problem.
Sorry, Mr. Moore.
Yes, through your worship. Those numbers are correct. The funding included in this year's budget, and Director Becking may want to speak more to this, but it was included to help get the project kickstarted. There's some site work and that our crew can do and begin late this fall. Again, working towards that spring installation. The funding number that was included in the 2024 budget was more just a placeholder at the time, recognizing that going through these types of projects, the funding and the cost associated with them can fluctuate quite a bit depending on small little changes here and there. So the intent was receive the proposals first, identify who we consider the best to work with moving forward, and then update that budget number as we better know the actual cost of it. The change we identified was in order to make sure we can guarantee that pricing, the 2024 budget wouldn't be approved in time. So we're recommending that it come through the Parkland Reserve instead. And I think that basically covers it. I don't know if Director Becking has anything else to add.
Director Becking, anything else to add?
Thank you, Worship. I think essentially Mr. Moore is correct. The intention with the two amounts that are allocated in the 23 and 24 budget were simply to get the project started and to do site works. They did not include the formal play structures themselves. As Mr. Moore has alluded to, this industry is known for wild fluctuations in pricing. And out of an abundance of caution, I did not include that in the budget so that we could effectively get these people committed to a price and then hold them to it. So the full scope of work, the essence of what I'm saying is the full scope of work was not included in the budget allocations that that you've seen.
Thank you, Director Becking. Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I have to say, when I read this report and being, you know, a 30-year user of this park, I was actually, as a taxpayer, I want to remind everybody I'm a taxpayer in this community as well. And I do look at things as from that lens. I was just very disappointed that my community was not involved. And that in fact, we had brought forward in some of the discussions that happened in the Parks and Recs manual thing, the need for accessibility somewhere in our township. And I don't understand that that's available in this particular plan. There's a lot of questions that I have, and I'm very disappointed. And I don't even believe that moving forward, what I heard, that we're going to even capture the public's input. And the fact that it came to council.
Sorry,
first,
is this one of the questions you
I'm
have?
not,
Or is
like,
this-
why? So coming to council first,
Yep.
How do we get council or community input when it comes directly to council is my very first question.
Council Director Becking or
Sure, if I may, through your worship, Director Becking may feel free to step into through our procurement process. The awarding of an RFP or a tender is directed to come right to council for that decision, because the project has already been approved, typically through the budget process as kind of that first level, and then that initiates staff to conduct that project either through a tender, RFP, and then bring the award of that project forward to council.
Director Becking, you were going to say something. I don't know if
Typically, public involvement should happen with some projects. This one is certainly a project that would be more of greater interest to the general public than would some of our others. But the problem with public consultation in the absence of a known proposal, frankly, in my experience, is seldom fruitful. It's entirely appropriate for council to direct that we proceed to solicit input from the public on the basis of the proposal that we've got. If there are adjustments that need to be made as a result of that consultation, it would be entirely appropriate for us to make those or negotiate those adjustments with the supplier once we know what we're up against. But to go to the public with a blank slate and say, what do you want? Frankly, doesn't normally work particularly well, in my experience.
Thank you. Councilor Nishikawa, you have a follow-up?
I'm sorry. I don't understand why we're taking the approach, and I guess I'm trying to figure out how to make this a question, because from this coming to council, we now have community has 20 days, and nobody knows that they have 20 days to actually comment on this. So I guess I'm a little bit concerned, and I'm going to ask if we could have a deferral, please, because there's just been so many other communication items that are happening in our municipality about recreation. And I'm just a little bit concerned that we are forgetting about the people that pay the bill and that their voices matter, and not that they could be a problem. Like, I don't want that to be, well, it might be a problem if they're just starting to look at it now. They're still paying the bill. So I want to hear from them, and I'm asking if this could be deferred, please.
Thank you. Let me just quickly have a conversation with the clerk. Sorry, I'm going to go back. We've got a couple other comments. Councilor Kent, then Councilor Mazza.
And I don't know the history here, but I would have, first of all, it's a large amount of money that we're committing if we accepted this today to potentially to 2024 already, where we know we're going to have a lot of troubles as it is. But number two, most importantly is why, when I look at the Hannah Park one, I know from history that it was a hugely community funded. Obviously, the township must have put some money into that. I don't know the history, but we're not even thinking to get any funding from the Bala community and all the people and families that are going to use it, who I think would be delighted to participate, most likely, in a massive community playground area, which has made Hannah Park so wonderful. So I don't know why we're not soliciting, and maybe that's policy, community donations and input properly from on this particular matter.
Director Becking.
I think, Your Worship, we're talking about two different situations. I don't know what pre-existed at Hannah Park. And so I'll not make any comment about that. But what I can say is that we have an existing piece of infrastructure that frankly is wholly inappropriate. It's something that should be in somebody's backyard. It is not something that is appropriate for general public use. And that causes me concern on behalf of the corporation because of the level of risk that it exposes the corporation to. What we are attempting to do is to provide a comparable level of service in a community park in Bala that currently exists also in Port Carling. So that was the motivation of why this park and why now. And as I've explained earlier in my comments, Your Worship, this particular industry tends to be very challenging from a procurement process point of view, and explains the reasons why we've adopted the approach that we have. Yes, it is a commitment against the 2024 budget, but there are also reserves in place intended for this purpose that can be utilized to support the purchase beyond. So that, I think, explains why we have arrived at where we have arrived at. Again, to reiterate one of Mr. Moore's earlier comments, the reason this is coming to council is because that's what the policy requires us to do. I'm not aware of having solicited. I think in the case of Hannah Park, it was actually a project that was wholly and solely run by Rotary Club,
Lions
or Rotary Club. It was an initiative that they totally did of their own volition, and then basically handed the keys over to the township, as I understand it. But again, it's long before my time, and I can't speak to the actual details of how we arrived at where we have.
Thank you, Director Becking. I'm going to go to Councillor Mazan, but Councillor Roberts, I see your hand up, and I'll get you next.
Okay, thank you. I think we're in questions, so I'm going to try to be questions. I think the request today is if we could get the money in place. This is what we're generally here to approve the funding piece. Is there an opportunity? I think I heard you say that we could still engage with the community, because I do think that parks are community builders. And I can imagine that this is a huge opportunity, quite honestly, for us to be out and showcasing some of the amazing investments we are making in our community. And so perhaps you could I'm asking the questions, not a comment. Could you walk me through how you would envision it? If you knew that this was an approved funding, what would be your recommended next steps to ensure that the community this was received as a very positive investment in the community? So that's my first question.
And that was directed to Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship. If it is council's desire to get some public input on the concept designs, we certainly can. To your point, if we can at least get the award of contract in place, we can certainly then take some of the early steps with the contractor in terms of measuring site measurements, preparing the site, etc. But at the same time, we can engage the community for input on the designs themselves. I would certainly work with our communications officer in that regard to develop the proper channels to do just that. And then we could certainly return to council with what we heard through that consultation and whether there are any maybe minor modifications that we could make to the project itself.
Okay, thank you. Could I?
May I have a follow-up? Sure, go ahead.
The only other comment or question I might have is in the preparatory work that you're discussing, just a question / comment, I guess, to ensure that there's climate resilience. That area is known to be a floodplain zone. So just as you're contemplating it, I guess that's less a question, more a comment. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. You're up.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Mr. Moore. There's two diagrams in the report that show the proposed configuration of this equipment. The question is, how much better or what improvement or better equipment are we putting in there or types of equipment over what's there now?
Certainly through through your worship. As Director Becking stated, currently there's two small pieces of equipment existing in Jaspen Park, a small Little Tykes plastic slide structure and a swing set. To Director Becking's point, they both are a safety concern moving forward and why this project was identified for this year to take place. I think the concept and the plan moving forward, and what I've certainly, and I hope to have an impact moving forward in this role, is to really start to do things right. I think over time, just from visiting different sites, etc., you can see maybe how things were pieced together time by time. And I think with this, we'd definitely be getting kind of the top of the line playground infrastructure. It would meet all accessibility requirements, everything from the ground cover in it, all safety standards, which would receive its inspections. And not only that, it includes a lot of the similar and number of amenities, as Director Becking alluded to, Hannah Park, in terms of number of slides, number of climbing structures, swings, etc. And not only that, we wanted to try to tie it into the character of the area as well too. You'll notice on a few of the images, little tents, the color of it blending into the natural landscape, etc. So we did take those factors into consideration.
Thank you. Supplemental, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Okay, so that's good. But this does not shut the door, I assume, for any more future enhancements to the Hannah Park play facilities, such as accessibility or more mature, older children apparatus that they can use. And am I correct in my understanding that the Recreation Master Plan, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, will address these? Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Through you, Chair, the simple answer is yes, you're correct. The current proposed playground infrastructure, it's for the uses of between about 18 months, 2 years to 12 years old. That's the target age group for this structure. Moving forward, you're right. Longer term, the Parks and Rec Master Plan definitely identifies developing design standards and maintenance standards for parks, playgrounds, trails, etc. So longer term, I definitely see us implementing that, and moving forward with these types of projects, we'll definitely have more guidelines in place and understand that, based on a park size, population around it, etc., we'll deem a certain, level or standard of playground equipment to follow it. To your point about adding equipment at a future date, of course, we can always do that as well. That's always an option. I believe earlier today, CAO Hammond mentioned hopefully getting to a capital service level review in 2024, and we can certainly use that opportunity to review a lot of our playground infrastructure as well moving forward.
Thank you for that. I'm going to tell you, I see no other questions, so I'm going to ask one, and that is of Director Becking. Would a deferral for 30 days jeopardize any part of the contract that's under consideration?
Let me ask Mr. Moore a quick question. Do you recall the date of we received the tender or the proposals?
Closing date was June 28th.
June 28th, July 28th, August 28th. 30-day delay would void the terms of the award.
Thank you. And just quickly, voiding the terms of the award means back to the beginning, or is there a penalty clause or something that would
No,
be?
it's the phrase escapes me. It's the period within which we must either award or not award, as the case may be. If we don't award, then we go back to square one.
All right, with that, I was proposing to read a resolution that we defer on this for 30 days. But given that the risk is we lose the current opportunity and essentially go back to the beginning. I suppose a straw poll might be in order in terms of figuring out whether people want to defer and take that risk, or just simply read the resolution, approve it, and catch up on any public input that we feel is necessary after the fact. Councillor Mazan. Yeah.
Thank you. If you were to read the resolution, do we still have an opportunity to discuss after you've read the resolution? Is that correct?
Yep.
Thanks.
Just don't know which one to read. I'm going to read it. Okay, I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that council award contract RFP 2023-48 to New World Park Solutions, and that the 2023 capital budget be amended to increase project 23013 by $109,000, and the 2024 capital forecast be amended to decrease project 24079 to nil. And that the difference of $75,400 in the revised project costs compared to the capital budget and forecast be funded through the Parkland Dedication Reserve. And that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the work of the proposal. Any further question? Councillor Bosenworth.
Yeah, just a clarification, because I think I heard this correctly. It means that if we could do public consultation, and if the public wanted a revised layout or some options, or perhaps maybe even wanted to raise some money to add some additional things over and above what we've budgeted, that would be, we would be able to do that within the terms of the contract they're going to sign. That's a sort of clarification.
Director Becking.
Your worship, the councillor is correct.
Thank you.
It does not preclude any of the above.
Any other comment or questions? Any comments? I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? 2. Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to just break in the flow for a little bit here. Go back to the very top and welcome our Member of Parliament, the Honourable Scott Aitchison. Scott, welcome. We're glad to see you here. I apologize because I think somebody may have misdirected you and told you we started at 2. And I apologize again because I think it was me. Or Guy. I think Guy confirmed it. But welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I do apologize. I was so early.
I was early, which is uncharacteristic of me. So thank you for helping me maintain a solid record of being late. So I appreciate that. That's leadership. Anyhow, it's it's great to be here. And thank you for having me. I gotta say, I've been was involved in municipal politics with people like Councillor Edwards here for a long time. Started out in Huntsville at the age of 21, and I'm finally having an opportunity to delegate to Muskoka Lakes Council. So I feel like I finally arrived. It's great to be here. And of course, you have some staff here that I worked with very closely in Huntsville, and so it's great to see your clerk and your CAO as well, good friends. And your clerk, you should know, trained me on how to be a human being when she worked for me. So it was a very important job.
She's working on that with me.
Yeah. So I'm not sure her work is completely finished yet, but anyhow, great to be here. The opportunity to be here really more than anything is just to say hello and make sure I meet everybody, but also to let you know that, our office is here to help, and we want to be available and make sure that the citizens of Muskoka Lakes are aware of the services that we offer, but also that you're aware that I'm available as a resource for each of you. And of course, I want to be sure that as the House of Commons resumes in September, we go back on the 18th. I want to be sure that the issues that you hear about every day and that may relate to the federal government, federal issues, that I'm aware of them, so that I can make sure that those issues are addressed within our caucus and within the House of Commons as well. I tell people regularly when I'm in Ottawa that having grown up literally in municipal government is great training to arrive in Ottawa, because of course Ottawa is a partisan system, and in my less charitable moments I describe it as ridiculous. This is a collaborating model, and I think that Ottawa could use a little more of it. So it's always good to visit municipal governments that work to find solutions in not a partisan way. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware that I'm eager to be your voice in Ottawa always, and if there are issues that you need me to address, I'd like to hear about them. I also thought it would be a good opportunity just to throw it back to you as well, Your Worship, to see if there were questions of me about any particular issues. Just so you know, my role in the opposition benches is that of critic or shadow minister for housing and diversity and inclusion. Obviously, the biggest focus of my time is on the housing situation. I know that the challenges of housing is as real here in Muskoka Lakes as it is anywhere. It's really one of the big reasons that motivated me to run federally, is because as the mayor of Huntsville, as a regional council for many years, housing has been an issue across Muskoka for a long time, particularly rental housing for people in the service related industries or seasonal businesses. And what always seemed missing to me in the mix of our discussions at the regional level and at the local level was a reliable federal partner. That hasn't changed, unfortunately. There's a lot of talk, but not enough real action. And so we're pushing pretty hard as a conservative party to get the government to make a few more changes to some of the programs that they have implemented, and to make sure that we're working together, not just at the federal level, but at the local level as well. You are on the front lines of the housing crisis. I say that everywhere I go. I've had the privilege of traveling this country. And municipalities are very much on the front lines of this issue. And so some are really good at it. Some are doing really well. Some are not doing very well. And so I think part of the challenge we face as Canadians, as leaders, is to make sure that all levels of government are rowing in the same direction and making sure that we are addressing what I think is one of the most significant issues our country faces today. So I'm honored to be on the file. I feel like we're making some progress, but if there's specific things that you want me to know about, I want to know about those as well. So, but more broadly, just wanted to come and say hello and make sure I knew everybody, and to see if there might be any questions or comments on the job I'm doing, notwithstanding how late I was today. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, Your Worship. Or early.
Thank you for that. I'm going to open it for questions first. I have one or two of my own. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Hi, Scott. So again, housing, and I will just say my disappointment with the federal government in not stepping up. And yet I feel like there's something out there, but it's not broadcast very well. And so if you get into the fine details of some of that, but our recent district meeting and things, the recent plan that they put out, it doesn't fit our communities at all. So there's that. But I also have another ask from a different perspective. And we see other municipalities gaining grants, federal grants for parks and recreation, just a broad thing. I would be interested in whatever you could bring forward in that way. In whatever dollars that we can get in, so that it isn't always on the municipal tax.
Specifically some funding for different projects in the parks and recreation and.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you. Like accessibility, for instance.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's no question that federal programs, we're just dealing with a situation this morning, a situation in London, Ontario, for example, which is one of the cities that, has really done a good job of making sure the development approvals process isn't, too backlogged and they've got a lot of units approved and ready to go. There was a project specifically there though that a couple of groups came together. They were going to take an old hospital building and renovate it and turn it into deeply affordable units, which is one of the biggest gaps in our market. And the CMHC, in part of their rules, they like to see more collaborative models, and so they encouraged a collaborative, multiple groups involved in the ownership and operation of the project, and they submitted their application. But of course, the Rapid Housing Initiative, which was funding, didn't like the ownership model. So you have what I describe as the left hand not knowing what the far left hand is doing. And as a result, there's 100 units, deeply affordable units that are desperately needed in the City of London. And they did everything right. They ticked off all the boxes and they have the resources to fill out the applications, go through the long, painful, arduous, bureaucratic process, did everything the way they were supposed to, and they got rejected. So, it's a mess. And unfortunately, this government has talked a lot about housing. The Prime Minister promised and I quote, life-changing, transformational national housing strategy in 2017. Well, we've seen the transformation. It's been a disaster. So this is part of my job, is to hold their feet to the fire when they screw up so galactically like that. But these are the kinds of the issues we're dealing with. And so, I think it speaks also to the importance of, working locally if there are projects that groups are working on and they need some CMHC funding to make sure that, my office is aware of it so that we can be advocating as much as possible as well. So.
Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, through you. On the housing front, one of the more successful strategies we had in the late 60s, early 70s was tax incentives. Mm-hmm. One of the challenges we have today in this, difficult financial market and difficult labor market is actually getting the private enterprise on board to build some of this stuff, because clearly, for the most part, they're the ones who are going to build it. And I haven't heard any discussion from either of the two major parties about introducing that kind of policy. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. It's an excellent point. In truth, the genesis of the housing crisis we see today, it began in the 70s, 1975, specifically as the era when the first Trudeau government decided they were going to cancel some tax incentives that were specifically geared to get multi-unit residential apartments, like rental buildings built. And anybody who spent any time in Toronto as an example, you can tell when they stopped building them, right? They are old now. The housing stock is getting old. I always point out to people that, you see these sort of older brick buildings, they're littered with cell towers, like cellular antennas, because that's just one way to get some revenue, right? The newer buildings don't have them. But the capital cost allowance and the MERB program, they canceled that under the approach that they were going to get into the business of social housing themselves. They're going to build it themselves. But then, of course, the downturn hit, energy prices
There was a crisis in the economy, inflation started to skyrocket. And the easiest thing to cut when you got to cut is the programs that don't have the immediate impact. So they cut housing. And almost immediately, the construction of rental housing started to decline rapidly. And by the time Chrétien was prime minister, there was really none getting built. And then they got out of the business completely because the IMF was knocking at our door then. We had to do something. And so what got cut was housing. And so you accelerate all of that, you know, condo market sort of has taken up some of the construction that's gone on, but of course, to build a rental building, the return on investment takes so long. You know, the market built condos, and so a lot of those condos have become investments, which is in some ways not a bad thing because it's actually put some rentals back into the market, but not nearly enough. And so the mess that we have today really did start in 1975 when they made those changes for whatever well-meaning reasons. And then today, as a result of you know, inflation, you know, COVID and disruptions to our supply chain and all the challenges we faced in the last few years have just accelerated the problem so dramatically, so that, you know, in 8 years, house prices have doubled, rent has doubled if you can find a place to rent. And so, yes, the response is that at the end of the day, in the whole housing spectrum, everything from literally emergency shelter to, you know, some of our seasonal residents who have, like, you know, great big, huge second or third homes, that whole spectrum is also a continuum. People move through it. As your needs change, so does your housing change. But the lack of purpose-built rentals specifically is the biggest gap in that market. And the CMHC has reported that they think we need about 5.8 million housing units by 2030 to restore affordability, to restore some semblance of balance in the market. And of those 5.8 million, I think some of the best estimates I've seen are that about 2.5 to 3 million of those need to be rentals. So the only way we're going to get that done is with the private sector. And the only way we're going to get the private sector to build what we want them to build is to make the numbers work. And right now they don't work. And so that's things like capital cost allowance. Now you should know that the current government, the Liberal government, actually in their campaign platform in I think it was 2015, committed to eliminate the HST on rentals. And they have not done that. But these are the kinds of things, these are kinds of tools that we need to use. So it's about making sure that you know, we make the numbers add up with all levels of government. So so for example, if the federal government does do something like eliminate the HST on rentals, but big cities decide, oh, there's an opportunity for us to raise more fees, and so they charge higher development, you know, charges costs, or they, you know, bigger costs there, then you haven't really solved the problem. We all have to literally be heading in the same direction on this. But at the end of the day, government makes more money on housing than anybody else. 33% of the cost on average across this country, 33% of the cost of every single residential unit is government. We tax housing the same way we tax booze and cigarettes. So we have a government that likes to talk about housing being a human right, but they tax it like the, you know, sin taxes. So we absolutely need to do more in terms of making it feasible for the private sector, because it's the only way we're going to get it done. This is literally trillions, $3 trillion of investment that needs to be done in the housing sector.
Go ahead, Councillor. Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Just a quick supplemental, and more specifically, does that mean if the Liberals aren't considering, are the Conservatives considering putting capital cost allowance in for rental purposes? Is that something your party is considering?
Yeah, we're working on our platform right now, and that is absolutely one of the things we're talking about, but whatever tools we might be able to use. I know that I think that the government is planning some big announcements, whether it's more window dressing or not, I don't know, but we'll see. So.
Thank you for that. Anyone else with a question? Councilor Edwards.
Yes, good afternoon, Scott. Good to see you again. The Housing Accelerator Fund, Central Housing Mortgage brought in $4 billion, which sounds very, very good. But then how do you get that money? Because we had something at district the other day, and if you're over 10,000 people, you have to have 7 initiatives. Or if you're under 10,000, like we are, we have to have 5 initiatives. And this funding is also not meant to be used for actual construction purposes, rather used for projects that help accelerate housing development, such as infrastructure. So how does a small township get the money if you've got to have 5 initiatives and you can't build houses?
Yeah, and Councillor Edwards, thank you for raising that as well. You, as always, you do a really good job of pointing out the inconsistencies in policy, and this is part of the problem. The policies and the formula for getting these dollars are absolutely geared towards larger centers. This is one of the great challenges with all of their programs, not just what you've described as the Rapid Housing Initiative, which is another $4 billion. But there's examples all over the country of organizations that have just given up when they got to the CMHC to get the approval. And so this is one of the challenges that we need to work on, in rural and smaller communities, is demonstrating that in fact that the housing crisis is just as real in small and rural communities as it is in big cities, and that we have to be part of the mix. But there are lots of organizations, and part of the reason that, of course, is small communities don't have the resources of larger cities. I mean, some of these cities have staff that just focus on writing grants. But we don't really have people around to do that kind of stuff in smaller communities. I give the example of Covenant House, Vancouver. I've been for a tour there. They built a new $55 million building in downtown Vancouver. They're serving some of the most vulnerable people in our society, young people, literally on the streets. And when I talked to the executive director, I said, "Did you get CMHC funding?" She quite proudly said, "Yes, we do get $13 million. So well, that's great. How was that process? She said, "Well, it cost us about $1 million in consultants and lobbying and lawyers to get 13. Well, that's insane. It's a joke. And that can't happen here. We just don't have those kind of resources to wage a bureaucratic battle to get the resources we need to support the people in this community. And so these are the kinds of things we need to fight. So thank you for raising it. And yeah.
Anyone else before I ask one? Nope. Seeing none, I want to say 2 things. I saw a quote from you in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago, and it was a mainstream newspaper, so you tell me whether it was true or not. But the issue was NIMBYs and NIMBYism. And the one thing I think that's probably consistent from 1960 till today is NIMBY. NIMBY, nobody wants this stuff. Everybody thinks it's a great idea as long as you do it on your side of town.
Yeah.
I think, well, I'll ask you, how do you overcome that? You were quite strong, quite profound in your comment, and I'm curious to know how that turns into real-time, real-life action.
Well, it comes for a number of things, and I'm familiar with the quote you're referring to. I spent my entire municipal career in Huntsville and Muskoka largely as chair of the planning committee. So I was involved in the writing and rewriting of a couple of official plans in Huntsville, and lots of work at the district. Chaired a lot of those committees. Derek has the scars to prove it from those days, from when I was chairing those meetings. And frankly, there's a couple of different things we need to address. Number one is making sure that the higher density development that we need is appropriately located. So, in the context of Muskoka, the kind of higher density we need really does need to be in the urban centers on full services. We need that to, make the operation of our, exceptional water and wastewater systems more affordable. Frankly, we have the best systems money can buy and not enough customers. That's part of the issue we have. But it's also more environmentally friendly. It's actually better, more fiscally sustainable for the municipality to have higher density residential in their urban cores. And so they've got to be, properly placed. But then it also does come down to, municipal councillors being honest and truthful. People don't like change. That's just a standard thing. No one really likes it. And I got reelected over and over and over again by telling people not what they wanted to hear, but what I knew to be right. And so, there were regular times when I would say to people, listen, I appreciate where you're coming from. And I think, your points about how traffic is going to be too bad and might be ugly, it might be all these things, but I don't agree with you. And, people respected that. They didn't always agree with me. Sometimes they didn't vote for me again, but this is about leadership. And this is what we need in this country at all levels of government. And it's and unfortunately in some places it's lacking. We talk about some of the larger centers, particularly, the leader of our party has talked very specifically about municipalities where the federal government, for example, is investing billions of dollars in high density urban transit. But there are all kinds of examples where federal governments, both conservative and liberal, have contributed huge dollars to transit projects, and the residential density around the stations on these lines is still single family residential. It's R1 zoning. Well, that's insane. And so what we're saying is, going forward, we all have to be on the same page. And if the federal tax dollar is going to go into investing in much needed urban transit, then the land around the stations needs to be upzoned and ready to go for high density residential around it as well. So again, a very different scale than we deal with here in Muskoka, but the principles are the same. The principles are the same.
I couldn't agree more. I think the leadership needs to be far beyond just at the municipal level. I think it's going to take all levels of government to make the case. This is not even just a problem. This has catastrophic possibility, and we need to stop it. We need to fix it. It's going to take guts. It's going to take some confidence that we can make a difference and perhaps put our future careers at risk. But at the end of the day, we're here to do these kinds of things. So that's important. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm glad you're here late or not, because I think now in my term as mayor, we've spent more time talking about attainable housing than we have park equipment at Jasmine Park. This is a real issue, and we got to make sure it stays on top of our priority list. I'm going to be calling on you for some guidance. You've got far more information and a big network of support that obviously at the municipal level we don't have, but we need to deal with it.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, Your Worship. I think it's important to remember the context of the housing situation. It's in many ways a moral imperative that in a society as wealthy and as successful as Canada, we live in one of the wealthiest countries in the history of the world. It's a moral imperative, I think, that everybody has a warm, safe bed to sleep in at night. But it's also an economic imperative. I heard a quote that if you're buying a coffee at a coffee shop and the person serving it to you can't afford to live within an hour of that place, then you're at a theme park. That's not sustainable. And so, these are the challenges we face. It's about our society. It's about the well-being of our society. It's also about the health of our economy and the growth of it as well. So, an investment in housing is an investment in the future of the country. So, thank you.
Terrific. Anybody with other comments, input, feedback? Anybody in the audience wish to ask questions or no? No? Oh yeah, we have one back here, sir. Can you please just identify yourself so we know who. You might have to come to the microphone just so you're on the record with everybody.
Let's get my stuff.
I'm Calvin Fawcett. I'm here for another purpose. You're going to find out soon. But I just was thrilled with everything he said, because that's the reason I'm here, and to some degree in the trouble I'm in. And we're a small investor that want to help as much as we can solve some of these problems. So I'm going to be following up by chasing this gentleman down.
Thank you. Okay, Scott, thank you very much. We appreciate the time. Sorry for the head fake on the time, the start time, but it was well worth waiting for. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. The next one on my list is a contract with Fowler. Is that correct? I want to make sure I don't read the wrong resolution here. 90. A contract with a stockpile of winter sand, and it's Director Becking, I think your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the risk of having things thrown at me, I'm afraid I have to remind everybody that winter is on its way. We've already started our preparations. We need to replenish the stockpile of winter sand. Tenders have been called. The bids have been, are listed in the report. Staff recommendation is to proceed with the lowest compliant bid from Fowler Construction in the amount of $169,370.00.
Very good. Anyone with any questions for Director Becking on that? Then sorry, Councilor Bozeman.
Just a curious one, how far does this sand get trucked to our facilities?
I believe it comes out of Bracebridge.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to read a resolution moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved, the council award contract T-2023-20 to Fowler Construction for the bid price of $169,370 plus HST. And that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Next one, we're going to call on Mr. Rob Kennedy. I think you have a report on bylaw enforcement, site alteration, tree conservation. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of council. I'm not too sure how we should operate this. And the only reason I say that is I was able to read the correspondence that was received just this morning from the appellants in this. And there's a number of items in their claims that I am not or have not been made aware of up until today. So I don't know if council wishes to hear from the appellants first, and then I can have an opportunity to respond to those and give a overall view of what we found during our investigation at the property.
So let me just ask a couple of quick questions to clarify. The stuff that you've discovered in this morning's report, is it something that you think can be resolved here and now, or is it something that's going to require you to do a visit or
It wouldn't require a visit per se, but it would require some sort of proof to be provided to our office in order for us to consider it further.
So I'm going to guess that based on that answer, that it's highly unlikely we're going to get to the point where you're satisfied one way or the other about some of the claims that were made in this letter, and that more time would be useful.
That would be correct. And I will preface this whole discussion and appeal that there is charges that are within the courts at this time. The first appearance date is indicated in the report is on September 13th. So just to be cautious for council that we can discuss the contents of the order and the whole appeal process, but I would highly recommend that we refrain from commenting on any of the charges that are in the provincial courts at this time.
Thank you for pointing that out. Let me just confer with the clerk for a second. Okay, so the clerk's pointed out we were looking at pushing it forward 1 month. The September meeting is on the 13th, and if you're in court in presumably Bracebridge or somewhere on the 13th, you can't be at two places at one time. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about the faucet parties, which means two things simultaneously, presumably.
Your Worship, I can clarify that. So on September 13th, the first appearance is set for 9 a.m. So by the time council is started at 1 p.m. that day, we would be finished that whole court process.
Thank you very much. And sorry, we're going to push this over 1 month. So I'm not going to take questions or comments at this time. Everyone will have a chance, and particularly Mr. Kennedy will have a chance to go through the new information that came in, presumably be in contact with you for what he needs to validate it. And then when we come back here in 30 days, we will all have the benefit of time and clear input on some of the stuff that just came up this morning. So I'm going to read a different resolution than planned, and it's going to go like this. All right, moved by Councillor Bosenworth. Seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that order to remedy tree conservation and site alteration OTR 2023-13 be postponed to the September council meeting. Is there an issue with the date? No, I asked you if there's an issue to the date. Sorry, you're talking about the litigation, which, as I understand it, is already before the courts. We have no. But that's got nothing to do with us. It very well might. We're deferring it on the basis that we received fresh information at some point overnight last night, I believe. We have not had a chance to make any sense of it.
Chair, who's speaking? I can't hear him.
Sorry. Good point. In order to be heard, you have to come to the microphone, but I'm going to keep this real tight.
Of this meeting by Madam's meeting on Monday. So I found out about this on Monday. Nobody told me that this was going to be appearing today. So, you know, this fact that the information came in late, I apologize, but I had no choice. It was a surprise to me. So that's number one. Number two, I apologize for all the grammar mistakes. That's how quickly it was done. So
I haven't seen it, so I don't know what.
And number three, there's some very, very simple issues here that I think if they were heard could be decided today. And everything I believe is in this package that would help this council to address it. And honestly, it's the lack of communication that has got us here. And I think this would just further make it a problem. Like I don't want to go to provincial court. I don't think I should have to go to provincial court. And this is making it worse.
I don't want to talk about provincial court. It's something we can't talk about.
I understand, except that it's the actions it's the actions of the municipality that landed me in provincial court.
All right, we're going to Councillor Nishikawa.
And I'm sorry if I'm out of line, but I'm asking through you to the clerk or do it here. Sorry, but is there an ability for us to go into council tomorrow just to review this particular ask or this situation? Just to try to speed up, because it would certainly give the rest of us an opportunity to be brought up to speed. But I also know that I'm really stretching it. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to the beginning, and the question was through me to you, so I'll let you respond.
I thank you through the mayor. I will respond very procedurally in that we have to provide 24 hours notice for a special meeting, which this would be. It does take us some time to put it all together. So there's a potential that you could hold maybe a 3:30 meeting, but again, the staff who put the agenda out are also sitting in this room. So it's not a no, it's just that it'd be difficult, but it's not a no.
Councillor Bosenworth.
Just a quick question. If Mr. Kennedy and the applicant or applicant, we're able to communicate between now and the court date, then could that court be withdrawn if we came to a satisfactory conclusion? If you came to a satisfactory conclusion.
Through your worship, a little bit of a difficult question to answer at this time because we don't have any of the information. Fact of the matter is, in Cole's Notes version is we've attended the site. Based on our investigation, we found contraventions under both the tree conservation and the site alteration bylaw. While I understand that the appellants have made some claims specifically to the hydro portion of what they submitted last night, that is brand new information that they have never told me before. So until I get some sort of confirmation from Hydro One, if that is even true, I can't necessarily do anything, and that does not absolve the property owners from the charges just because of that. That may mitigate some of the penalties, if you will, but I don't believe that simply having Hydro cut 1 or 2 trees down when there was, upwards to 20 trees would absolve them from any penalties in there.
Thank you. CEO Hammond has asked to speak.
So, your worship, I think what I'm sensing council struggling with is we have charges moving forward in court. Staff have come forward to you requesting confirmation of a site alteration order or order to remedy. Unfortunately, procedurally, this is the process we're in, the way our bylaws and process are set up at this point. We don't want to imperil the litigation. The appellants in this matter or the respondents are coming to you with additional information, which they're presumably going to put forward in court. Presumably, they want us to consider as it relates to the site alteration order. I'm going to look to Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Pink. It strikes me that this issue is charges have been laid. The court process is going forward. It seems to me that that's the most appropriate process for that matter to proceed and those conversations to occur within if there's additional information there. What you're being asked by staff is, do you agree with the order? The additional information, in my view, can be considered through the court process. I'll ask Mr. Pink or Mr. Kennedy to further comment on that, but that would be my advice to council.
Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
Through your worship, I believe CAO Hammond is totally correct on that. While new information may be gathered, and that would possibly help their situation when it comes to the provincial courts. Today, we are looking at the contents of the said order that was issued on the property.
Mr. Hammond.
So in essence, my concern is that I don't want to obfuscate or have the issue obfuscated by additional information that may or not be relevant in this case.
Okay, I'm of the opinion that if we rush this thing, we're going to mess it up. And there's new information that's come in. We have not had a chance to look at it. I'm sorry that it means an extra 30-day delay for you to be heard. But I think it's better the delay than a mistake being made. And so I'm going to continue. Did I read the resolution? I've read the resolution. Thank you very much. You can have a seat. Thank you.
Your worship, I think this is a miscarriage of justice.
Thank you very much. All right, you've heard the resolution. Did I read? Yeah, the rest, just to remind everybody, it's a resolution to postpone until the September council meeting, 1 month. Anybody got any questions from around this table? Anybody, any comments? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Sorry, we'll take a 10-minute break and get back here at, I don't know what time it is, 10 minutes to 3 by that clock. Thank you. Oh. Okay, thank you very much and welcome back. We're going to get through the rest of this stuff. We have a shore road allowance matter in front of us. Chriselle prepared the work on it, but we're going to read the resolution. If anybody has any questions, she's here in the room and can respond to them. Moved by Councillor Parry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on 3 Mile Lake. Is it good, Gord? You can hear me? Okay. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on 3 Mile Lake lying in front of concession 6, lot 17 Watt, designated as part 1 on plan 35R-27151- Amy Fahili, roll 2-4-055, be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2023-096 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as part 1 on 35R-27151 be given 3 readings and passed. Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, what's next? Is this Chriselle as well? Oh. All right, I'm going to take a look at the next one. Who's speaking on this? Is somebody coming to talk to it? No?
That's the topic.
The topic is bylaw deeming lot 4 on plan M179 in the former township of Wood to be not a subdivision. There's probably no conversation to be had. Okay. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Bosemworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-097 being a bylaw to deem lot 4 on plan M-179 in the former township of Wood, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes District Municipality of Muskoka, being a lot on a plan of subdivision is hereby deemed not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision for the purposes of section 50 sub 3 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended. Schnur, roll number 8-15-065 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody have any questions? Then all in favor? Thank you. That carries. All right, what's next is. Okay, the next one is same no report, just read through. It's the right one. Yes. Okay, moved by Councillor Parry, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-193 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, the Anthony Miller Trust and the Karen Miller Trust, roll number 1-3-032-04, be ready first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Moved by Councillor Edwards. Seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved, the Township Council amend bylaw 2022-193, the Anthony Miller Trust and the Karen Miller Trust, roll number 1-3-032-04. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of prohibiting a habitable building within building envelope B, requiring a 25-foot side yard setback from the northeasterly side lot line, and removing subsections 1.1, little 2, and little 3 from bylaw 2022-193, which impose a holding bracket H symbol. Okay, anybody have any questions? All in favor? That one carries as well. Thank you very much. Okay, where are we? All right. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-193, the Anthony Miller Trust and the Karen Miller Trust, roll number 1-3-032-04, be read a third time and finally passed. Questions? All in favor? Carry. Thank you very much. Okay. So next one up is Clax 10 Holdings Inc. Island Owl. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-033 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket Clax 10 roll number 8-18-004 be read a first and second time. Question? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-033, Clax 10, roll number 8-18-004. Be read a third time and finally passed. Did I miss something? No. Any question? All in favor? That carries as well. Thank you. All right, this one, next one up is, let me just make a mark here. Brown, lot 9, concession 9, part. All right, read the resolution first. Moved by Councillor Zavitz. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for that. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-039 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Brown, roll number 4-5-031, be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2023-039, bracket Brown, comma, roll number 4-5-031. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. These amendments shall consist of an exemption to permit a maximum cumulative single-story boathouse width of 45 feet, an exemption to restrict the maximum permitted cumulative dock width to 57.5 feet, an exemption to prohibit further boathouse and dock additions, an exemption to prohibit the construction of a boathouse cupola, and finally, replacing Schedule 2 with the revised site plan. Staff are here to speak to it. Oh, here we are. Mr. Soya, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. So this is an application that in June Planning Committee considered in the name of Brown. And the zoning bylaw amendment was requested to facilitate the construction of a new garage and a one-story addition to an existing two-story boathouse by permitting a lot coverage of 10.9% and a first-story boathouse width of 46 feet, which is 8.2 feet wider than is permitted as of right. Staff had recommended denial of the application due to concerns about the impact of the boathouse addition on built form. And committee had contemplated a deferral of the application to provide the applicant with time to revise the proposal. However, at the suggestion of the applicant, committee recommended that the application be denied, and which then it was. Since that time, the applicant has corresponded further with staff and has submitted a revised boathouse proposal, which is attached to today's agenda on pages 160 and 161. To clearly show these changes to council, I have a slide here prepared to share, which I would ask staff to screen share, and I believe it has been screen shared. If we could just go back to the first one, that would be great. So the revised plan involves a 1 foot reduction in the width of the proposed boathouse addition. This reduces the requested width exemption to 7.2 feet over the width that is permitted as of right. And the applicant has also now proposed to amend their building permit for the docks to reduce dock length and dock width by 1.5 feet. And the applicant has taken the step of submitting an application to our Development Services Division to make this change to the issued building permit for the dock. The revised application also involves improvements to the location of the existing legal non-complying boathouse. Currently, it is situated 41 feet from the westerly side lot line, and the revised proposal involves shifting the boathouse to the east to bring it into compliance with the minimum side yard setback of 45 feet for a 2-story boathouse. The revised proposal also involves shifting the boathouse 4 feet closer to shore than the existing boathouse, which would bring the 2nd story into greater compliance with the maximum permitted 2nd story length. And lastly, the applicant has also agreed to restrictions on further boathouse and dock additions, including a restriction on the construction of a cupola. The current boathouse has a cupola, and the proposed boathouse would not be permitted to have one under this new revised proposal. So then the next slide just shows what's also shown on pages 160 and 161 of the agenda, shows the differences between the original proposal and the revised proposal. And just briefly here, the dashed red line shows the location of the existing boathouse footprint, and the gray shaded area shows the proposed footprint. And the proposed addition that would extend beyond the as of right permitted width is shown hatched on the right side of the gray shaded area. So staff have acknowledged that the resultant built form would be modestly decreased through these reductions in size and by moving the boathouse closer to shore. Also, the proposed repositioning of this legal non-complying boathouse into greater compliance with applicable side yard setback and length requirements is a noteworthy improvement from a compliance perspective. While a further reduction in boathouse width would be a preference of staff, we do feel that the changes that have been made result in a notable cumulative overall improvement to this proposal. And in consideration of those proposed combined changes and the restrictions on further additions, staff are able to recommend approval of this revised plan. And yeah, that provides an overview of the changes. I'm available for any questions. And I believe the applicant is also here to delegate on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soya. Nicely done. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Soya? Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Soya. I recall there being people in the audience, or there was some opposition that came forward. Have we let them know about all of these changes and things? And I just am finding it a little bit challenging looking at a new plan when we left a message in the past, like we gave the opportunity to defer to do exactly what has happened. But now I feel like we've removed the public input portion. And so I'm just asking, is there any way, did we contact anybody? Thank you.
Mr. Soya.
Through you, your worship, There was at the prior to the meeting, there was 3 submissions that were received, and 2 of them were from the abutting on each side of this property from abutting property owners. They were in support of the proposal. And there was also a letter received from Janet and Barry Brackley, who are owners of a nearby property to the north. And it's my understanding that the applicant has spoken to the Brackleys about this proposal. And it's my understanding that they were able to come to a better understanding of the application, that there was some a misunderstanding as to what the proposal involved with regards to potentially adding boat slips. And that is not the case here. There's no additional boat slips being added to the proposal. Hopefully that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Nishikawa, you have a follow-up?
Thank you. Again, I'm going through my notes, but I was concerned because at one point there was 21% lot coverage. Where are we at now, I guess, is the 10.9. Well, I wrote that down too. I got there, but there was something else odd. And that's why I was just wondering, but I am concerned. I will say, I'm a little concerned that our staff did not reach out directly to the Brackleys, because that's what I believe we should be doing. Because I really feel there's a missing component, that we're dealing with this application in this way today, when it's not what was brought forward to the public meeting.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Soya, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't realize you can't see him. He was over here.
Thank you. Just to respond to correspondence with the Brackleys, I have actually, I did receive an email from the Brackleys and asking if there was a revised proposal, and I did guide them to today's agenda that includes the revised plan, and I did not hear back from them afterwards. So I think, I mean, I did ask them to advise that I was available. So it's my understanding, they have not raised a further concern with me directly. Thank you.
Mr. Soya, just out of curiosity, when did that exchange take place?
That would have been yesterday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Kent, then Councillor Bosenworth.
Would the normal practice when you have a revision of a plan be to have it go back to planning first, where we discuss it fully, and then have it come back to council? Because I feel like this is being pushed in on us very fast. It's coming at the council level rather than the proper level with the planning.
Mr. Sharp, I see you've come online. You want to take that one, please?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, members of council. You may recall last month having a lengthy discussion about the benefits and disadvantages of deferring and who would be dealing with what and the different options that were available. Council opted to defeat the application. Mr. Brown has been working with Mr. Soya quite diligently to come up with something that is more palatable. So at this point, if you're looking to kick it back to planning committee to have further discussion about the matter in that forum, that is certainly an option that's available to council at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bosenworth, I think you had your hand as well.
Thank you. If we are on page 161, the blue hatched area, is that still essentially non-compliant on the main floor boathouse addition? Mr. Sawyer?
Thank you. Through your worship. That is correct. The blue hatched area is the 7.2 foot proposed addition above what is permitted as of right today. There you'll also see a cross-hatched red area next to that. That is also part of the addition, but that's the part that would be permitted today as of right.
Thank you. Councillor Mazan and Councillor Kent.
I was just hoping that Mr. Sawyer could kindly repeat that last comment. I didn't hear it fully.
Thank you. So the drawing on page 161, it shows the as of right, no, sorry, the 7.2 foot requested addition, which is above and beyond what is permitted as of right. And the red crossed hatched 3.8 foot area shown is what the applicant would be able to have a building permit issued for today without a planning approval. Hopefully that answers the question.
Councillor Mazan has a follow-up.
So I'm just going to repeat my understanding from last month, and I think this is perhaps where Councillor Nishikawa is going, is that the issue was actually with the 8 feet over. So that exact location, the crosshatched area. And so what I'm seeing is there's been a slight improvement through a variety of things to the overall application, but that there would still be 7.2 feet that are outside of what would be currently. And my memory was that this was the big part of the discussion last time. Correct?
Just Sawyer?
That is correct. It has been the width of the proposed addition. The applicant is proposing to reduce it by 1 foot. So it's a modest reduction. And staff have looked at this in a cumulative way and have looked at this breadbasket, so to speak, of improvements and restrictions, and have worked with the applicant to come up with a number of all taken at one at a time. They're quite minor. But together they do add up to what we would see as an improvement to the overall resultant built form on that property, especially moving it back closer to shore, and then also seeing it as an improvement overall in terms of compliance, bringing it into compliance with the side yard setback as well. Thank you.
Mr. Sharp, did you want to add to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, just briefly, I believe Mr. Soya failed to mention, I think what we feel is one of the more notable improvements is the second story portion of the boathouse. So today, the second story exceeds the second story maximum length requirement by, I believe, 5 feet. The maximum second story length requirement is 35 feet. So when this boathouse was constructed, that rule or provision didn't exist. So the applicant, Mr. Brown, has opted and has proposed to improve the overall situation by bringing that second story into further compliance with the maximum permitted length requirement. And I think, the official plan speaks to improvements whenever one is reconfiguring or redeveloping an existing legal non-complying building or structure. And I think the first kick at the can, there were really no improvements being made. And I think, as Mr. Soy had indicated, the applicant has come forward with, a sort of a breadbasket of improvements. And I think that is enough for staff to lend their support to this. And I think ultimately it's a question of whether council agrees and whether you want to deal with this today or whether you want to kick it back to planning committee. Thank you.
Okay, I think Councillor Kent was next and then Councillor Edwards.
Mr. So I just have a tiny question so am I to understand that on the second floor, the blue area is not an issue, the blue shaded issue, as Councillor Mazan asked, it's only on the first floor because they brought it into compliance with what they're allowed as right on the second floor? Because it seemed like such a small change, a foot. You addressed this, but a foot change got you guys from not recommending it to recommending it.
Thank you. Through you, your worship. So the second story currently extends further out into the extends further in from the shoreline than is permitted, and the applicant is proposing to bring it back 4 feet, which is not completely in compliance. One corner of it, just the way that the shoreline curves, is still, I believe, it is 2 feet and 1 inch not yet in compliance on the one side, the one corner. But there is a 4-foot improvement. Now, I would just, I guess, like to just take a moment just to point out that staff have looked at all the minor improvements here in a cumulative sense. The applicant also has already an issued permit for the dock, which currently would permit him to build a dock to 66 feet and to the maximum dock width. He is proposing to pull both the length and width back, and has applied to amend that permit by 1.5 feet. Then there's the 1 foot reduction in the width, and there's the improvements to the location of the existing boathouse, bringing it 4 feet closer, bringing the length into greater compliance, and bringing the side yard setback into compliance for this building. And there's restrictions that he has proposed to add into the bylaw to clearly indicate that there's no further additions permitted, and that this the new boathouse would not have a cupola on the roof. Cupolas are exempt from height requirements, and often you'll see cupolas that extend past the maximum permitted height of a boathouse. And in this case, that would just be clear that that is not would not be permitted on this boathouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Story. I'm going to go to Councillor Edwards, and then I think we're going to deal with this one way or the other. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I can support staff on this. There's some minor improvements. Yes, we'd always like to see more, but with the savings that we're getting on it, I would support it. Thank you.
Okay, before we call the vote, Councillor Bosenworth, yes, sir. After the vote, that's good. Now we've read the resolution. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't remember whether we'd read the resolution or not. I remember very distinctly Mr. Soya giving a long, complete list of items on this property that were non-compliant. They were on the water and they were on the shore, but they were grandfathered. So it had a long list of non-compliant items, which almost by itself made the property difficult. you know, the one floor addition was a big problem. And I think what we've taken 1 foot off of that, we've taken 1 foot off the width of the dock. 4 feet off the length of the dock is the only number I think that is of significance. Pulling back the second story helps. Given the long list of other things that this property had, the cumulative effect, which was Mr. Soya's point last time where he was recommending denial, I just don't feel, I'm a little uncomfortable still that there's just not enough, and I'm particularly bothered by, you know, the fairly significant out of compliance first story addition that has really been improved at all. And that contributes to built form much more than 4 feet on the dock. My opinion. I'm not sure I can vote for it, but that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
From my perspective, we have, and I certainly recall Mr. Soya's long list, but we're here today now having Mr. Soya's recommendation for approval. That counts for a tremendous amount. There has been work done. I've heard the word diligently used in terms of the relationship between Mr. Brown and our planning group, Mr. Soya particularly. There have been some concessions made, not only to improve last month's submission or whatever it was 2 months ago, but also to improve the circumstance, the situation as it presently exists. We have no objection from the neighbors. I think, like some have said, that the 1-day turnaround with the Brackleys is rather unfortunate, but given the circumstances that we're in, where we get these files on the Friday, I suppose maybe we need to step back and have a look at that. But in this particular case, we don't have any objections. We have our esteemed staff on side with it. I am prepared to support this one. Mr. Brown, your name is on as a speaker if you wish.
All those changes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I took seriously the comments that came from staff last time and council and made all the changes we made. We made it 1.5 feet shorter and moved it 4 feet closer to the shore, 1.5 feet narrower. Just so you know, I had a permit for the dock because we're trying to get it done now. We filed in good faith the reduced dock size already. I took staff's direction and in good faith, Mr. Soya is right. It's in. So I guess I'm negotiating badly, but I'm telling you, I'm going to comply with what I was asked to do, because when they told me what to do, it made sense. We're more in compliant with the depth. We moved it back, more in compliant with the second floor, reduced the first floor. We did all those changes and agreed that we'd never put a cupola on because we know that those can go much higher. So we did what we had to do. I had my neighbors on side and made myself available to them. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilor Burry has a comment.
Yeah, so I think that there has been a lot of effort made here to make it right. It still smells to me like that main floor is going to turn into a recreation space. I paddle past there and I'll be making a complaint if I see one.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to not, I see nobody else's hands up, so let's call the question. All in favor as read. All right, anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members. Thank you very much. We just closed that off.
Need to read it a third time. Okay, we're getting close to the end. Can we stay focused? Mr. Burry, Councilor Burry and Kent, we got to get this done. Moved by Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-039 Brown, roll number 4-5-031, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? Thought you were going to tell me again that you're going to paddle by. Okay. All right. So the next one is, let me just make sure I know which one we're on here. Is this, I don't know.
Yeah.
This doesn't say that. That's fine. Yeah, that's one. That's the one. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Is someone here to speak? Yes, I think I see Somebody's looking in the, what's going on? Sorry. You're being photobombed by somebody. Welcome, Ms. Walker. How are you?
I'm good, Your Worship. How are you?
Good, thank you very much. You have the floor.
Thank you. So just a quick summary. In July, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendments at VA 1523, bylaw 2023-047 in the name of 2871503 Ontario Inc. The property is known municipally as number 2 Island Sky M35. The applicant is proposing to enlarge one of the 2 existing dwellings, such as dwelling number 1. The township zoning bylaw does not permit an increase in floor area where more than 1 dwelling exists on a property. In July, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application and requested some additional information be provided regarding the existing buildings and structures on the property. After the July meeting, additional comments were received from Steve Fauner on behalf of the Dawson family, who are the neighbors on the other side of the island. The letter of objection has since been withdrawn. These comments were both circulated to council prior to today's meeting. Staff can read any of the submissions in full at the request of council. A submission from the owner's agent was also received after the last planning committee meeting. This submission has also been circulated to council. At Planning Committee in July, it was the request of committee that staff look into additional buildings. The owners have since submitted a survey that was completed in March of 2023, which is attached to the current council agenda. Staff have reviewed the 2023 survey against past surveys and the site plan. In staff's opinion, the concerns which were previously raised and the questions that committee had during the last meeting don't impact the current application and can all be addressed outside of the current application process. Staff understand from consultation with the building department that some additional building permits will be required. More information is required regarding the legal non-complying status of the sports court on the property, and staff have therefore recommended that the sports court be removed from Schedule 2 at this time. Staff are recommending the minor amendment to remove the sports court from Schedule 2, but I have no further comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions council might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Ms. Walker, through you. I read all the materials that had been supplied pretty diligently and spoken to people and listened to everybody. I guess I'm still confused. Can you confirm to me that there's been a whole bunch of building done on this property over the last 2 years? Have there been building permits properly issued for that construction work? That's my first question. And second one is, are you recommending that there be a stop work order on the sports court? You said pull it off the plans, but are you suggesting that they do not yet have permission to proceed with the sports court? I didn't understand your comment. Thank you.
Ms. Walker, that was for you, please.
Yeah, both were for you.
Perfect. They're your worship, and thank you for the questions. There has been some work completed on the property in the last few years that would require some building permits. This would be in addition to a shed, in addition to a sun deck. Those are the types of works we're talking about in this case. In regards to the sports court, I wouldn't say that we can comment at this time if a stop work order is appropriate. However, staff would feel better not to include it on the current schedule. This does not mean we are saying that it's more so to do with the legal non-complying status of the sports court. We don't have enough information at this time to confirm if it is appropriate or if we need more or if it should be removed. So until we have more information, and that's more of an enforcement matter, it would be staff's preference that it is removed from Schedule 2. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Thank you very much. Follow up, Councillor Kent.
Just for clarity, so you said there was construction completed over the last few years, and there were not at the time properly issued building permits. You're now going to go put the building permits in place, but there were claims made that there was some things built that weren't done per township policies, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding that was the case, because they're on the plan, but there were no building permit issued.
Your worship. Yes, that is correct. There are building permits required for some of the structures that have been constructed in the last few years.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? Councillor Bosenworth.
I may be thick on this topic, but with respect to the sports court, I think it's already built, is it not? No?
No, I don't believe that it is.
Okay, so it hasn't been built. And we're taking it off the diagrams and there are the exhibits. So that means that it cannot be built yet. Is that what that means?
Ms. Walker, what's the consequence of removing it from the schedule, the sports court?
Mr. Sharp may have something to add. However, I'll kind of put my 2 cents in, then he can comment if anything else is needed. Including the existing sports court on the schedule in no way legalizes it or creates an illegal situation on the property. However, moving forward, staff want to make it clear that at this point, staff has not confirmed that it is a legal non-complying sports court. And until we have more information, we think it's best that it's not included on that schedule.
Thank you.
Which means it can't be built yet. Thank you.
Okay. How do I write this? All right, I'm going to read a resolution and then we can come back if we have any more questions or comment. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-047 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, 2871503 Ontario Inc. Roll number 6-27-028. Be ready first and second time. Any more question? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right. Then we have the minor amendment, which goes like this. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved, the Township Council amend bylaw 2023-047, bracket 2871503 Ontario Inc., roll number 6-27-028. And this amendment is minor in nature and does not require further public circulation and is hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendment shall consist of requiring the sports court be removed from Schedule 2 to bylaw 2023-047. Question, Councillor Kent.
Councillor Bosworth's kind of shouldn't say, and that until building permits are issued, it cannot be built.
This is how you do it.
You think it says that?
No, I think this is how you do it.
What do you say?
Councillor Bosenworth.
That's the law. Okay.
Will the issue of sports court come back? So what will the process for resolving the sport court be, and will it resolve? Will it come back to council?
CAO Hammond has a comment.
So the effect of removing the sports court, the recognition, if it was included in the bylaw, we would effectively be recognizing it and legalizing it. Right. So by not including it, it is up to the owner to prove that it's legal non-conform or non-complying. So the onus is now on them. And I see that Mr. Pink had his camera on and he had just turned it off. So obviously I got it right.
Or you've embarrassed him. So. Okay, anyone with other questions? All right, and we'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
Oh, just a second. I didn't hear any of that. Or the people on. Sorry, Mayor. Still
Can
can't
you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, it's when the red light's on. Okay. Shall I read it one more time for Councillor Roberts? All right. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-047, 2871503 Ontario Inc., roll number 6-27-028. Be ready third time and finally passed. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. That vote carried. That's why I don't put it off. Okay, what are we on now? We're on the next file. called Zanelli. Does anyone have a report on this one? Don't believe so. I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent. Seconded by Councillor, what's that say? Oh, Burry. Oh, Burry, sorry. Of course it says Burry. I said Burns. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-059 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Zanelli, roll number 6-18-005-01, be ready first and second time. Anyone with questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-059, Zanelli, roll number 6-18-005-01, be ready third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Next one is Molyneux, Part of Island Burgess. And it goes, no report, I assume. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-075 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Molyneux, roll number 4-24-033. Be ready first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? Oh.
Last time I was told when we severed Meta Island that the people had to have a parking spot and a is it the building permit that requires the parking spot, or is it the severance that requires the parking spot?
Who are you addressing that question to? The staff. Mr. Pink or no, Mr. Sharp, please. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, you'd think by now I'd know to unmute myself, but thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your question, Councillor Kent. So essentially, essentially what's in front of council is an exemption from a minimum frontage requirement that was imposed as part of a previous application process. So there were consent applications that were approved by council previously. And through that process, the access and parking considerations were all addressed through conditions of consent. So that's all being taken care of behind the scenes by staff. What's in front of you today is simply the exemption from the minimum frontage requirement. There's been a recent survey, and it simply turns out that they have less frontage than what they had previously thought they had. So it's rather technical in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and call the question now that we've read it. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right. Next one, move by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 20, excuse me, can we be it resolved that bylaw 2023-075, Molyneux, roll number 4-24-033, be ready third time and finally passed. Questions? All in favor? Thank you for that. Carries. All right, we're down to adjournment and then closed. Before adjournment, I would like to say one thing, and that is today is Persephone Seal's last, not day with us. She's still going to be here for more abuse, but in terms of participating in our meetings, this is her final, and then she is moving along with her partner to Guelph. All I can see is Alan Edwards' head to Guelph. And we all want to thank you for your service here. Your time here was way too short. You were just a terrific customer service. If we can be considered your customers, you did a great job. Thank you very much. Absolutely best wishes for your future with your education and so forth. I don't think anybody has any doubt you're going to succeed, and we're going to miss you. So thank you very much. I'll even let you vote on this next one. All right, moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that council in closed session convene at 3:38 PM for litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, OLT Appeal Report Plan 2023-138. Personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Report HR-2023-03. Personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, if required. Confidential memo from the clerk, LS-2023-27, re citizen appointments, community center.